the one thing that could pull me out of the darkness was the love that I have for my children. She woke up one day and it's like she wasn't even herself. She ended up suicidal. I had so many dark nights of the soul. Not one pivotal moment, there was so many, a series of moments. It's like you're in a boat that's leaking and you feel like you're going to go under. How are you still standing? How are you still okay?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Experts podcast. Today, we welcome Michelle Dosanjh-Johal. She is the founder of Mindful Warriors Way. She is a transformational leader that empowers women to turn chronic stress into the stress so they rise into their power. Now, Michelle brings her own powerful story with neurodiverse children and also the FAST framework for resilience she created to help both adolescents and neurodiverse adolescents to navigate their lives with chaos and turning to courage. Michelle, we welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I want to start by asking, what was the pivotal moment in your journey that sparked the transformation from chronic stress and turning to your strengths?
Right. Alka, I'm not sure if there was one pivotal moment or just a series of moments. And so, in order to understand how I found resilience within my own life and how I found the FAST framework for resilience, you have to know a little bit about my story. So, I'm going to back it up and talk a little bit about my children.
Absolutely, yes.
So my son was in the process of being diagnosed with autism at 3. And, it just takes so long. So before he turned 4, he was diagnosed. My daughter was also diagnosed with high functioning autism at 9. And then at 11, she was, it was just like this fluke diagnosis that we didn't even realize that she had. We were going into the pediatrician for something completely different, and he became very suspicious of her short height. And thank God for this pediatrician, because he ended up doing some blood tests. Long story short, she has a very rare health disorder called mosaic Turner syndrome, which affects 1 in 2,500 girls.
Oh, wow.
So this ended up in a slew of health issues. At 15, she was having full-on open heart surgery. She needed growth hormones. She needed all the hormones. By the time she was hitting puberty, estrogen, progesterone, all of that. In her 12th year, she ended up with another diagnosis of IBD and blood transfusions and hospitalized. And then I have to back it up. My son was also being diagnosed with a mood disorder at 11. And then, yeah, I know it's a lot. It's a lot to process. It's still a lot for me to process sometimes. And then the scariest thing was December 2023. And I'm just going to, give you a point of reference. So my daughter is the kindest, this empathetic soul. She's high functioning on the spectrum, meaning she's still a very bright child, was able to articulate herself, A and B student. And she woke up one day and it's like she wasn't even herself. And the reason why I talk about this is because I didn't even know what was happening, and I need others to be educated about what psychosis is.
Right.
So she woke up, so she was this calm, gentle kid, and then all of a sudden she's irate, she's temperamental, she's throwing things, she's refusing to talk to us, and then she starts to regress and act like a toddler. And at one point that day, I remember she was eating cereal and she took her bowl, and this was in the evening, and she took her bowl and she starts to bite into her cereal bowl. So yeah, I knew something was incredibly wrong. And so took her into to the hospital. The doctor thought she had a brain infection. But then like medications weren't working. She ended up suicidal, and it took months and months in the hospital. So 2 months the first time, and then she had to go back another 3 months, and about a year before we finally started to find the right medications and whatnot. And so it's through my journey. Like I had so many dark nights of the soul, not one pivotal moment, there was so many, a series of moments where it was just so dark and so trying. And I found that the one thing that could pull me out of the darkness was the love that I have for my children. And so I would just focus on this love. It would pull me through. And then, it would pull me through to the point where then I could start utilizing other strategies. But when you're in that, critical moments, it's like you're in a boat that's leaking and you feel like you're going to go under, and that's not the time to be thinking about, oh, okay, what was that framework,
Yeah.
oh, can I meditate right now, can I, can I be exercising? No, because I'm in the hospital room like 24/7 and then taking a break just to be able to sleep and shower, right? In those moments, what I tell people is you need to just be able to stay afloat.
Right.
So in those moments, you find yourself an anchor, so you're steady. And for me, it was the love that I have for my kids that would pull me through the dark times. And it could be love, it could be hope, it could be faith. I tattooed hope, onto my body for my daughter.
Beautiful. Yes. Oh,
Thank you. That was when she had her open heart surgery. Um, but, and just holding on to the hope that one day you will figure it out and things will get better. And they do get better eventually, right? I mean, life is like up and down, but yeah. So I hope I answered your question there.
yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well, that was a transformation. And I mean, first of all, I do want to, I do want to, show the empathy as to what you had gone to, because any parent going through what you and your husband, or the families have to go through with a child or children who are facing, any form of disability. But the disability, I don't like to use that word. I
Right.
don't like to use that word, but they every child has the ability. That's
Uh,
the way I like to frame it. They
right.
have the ability to do so much in this world. They are bright, they are intelligent, but it's how, unfortunately, they are labeled as such.
Right. And that is part of the reason why I talk about the story as well, is because, I mean, the biggest label people will face is the mental illness, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
both my kids have unfortunately experienced that. And out of all of the things we've navigated, I have to say that that is the most difficult. And so I feel like I need to be a voice for people so that we can understand that illness is illness,
Mm.
right? And we cannot see people as their labels, right? And so if you were to isolate my daughter, and I get a bit emotional when I'm thinking about it, but if you isolated her and you labeled her based on when she was experiencing psychosis, right? That's not her. That was not her. That behavior was not her. She is kind, she is gentle, she is empathetic, she is smart. People, if they just want to label someone with a mental illness, will never truly see her. So we need to see through a lens of compassion
Yes. Hmm.
and realize that mental illness is just another form of illness, unfortunately affecting the mind, unfortunately affecting, the neurotransmitters or whatever is going on, the dopamine or, the serotonin, whatever is happening, the same way that diabetes is affecting the insulin. And we would never look at someone with diabetes, like my dad had diabetes, and we would never look at someone with diabetes and say, oh, don't take your insulin, you know.
Mm.
But mental illness has a stigma, number one, and number two, we want to tell people, oh, don't take meds, don't take meds, when honestly, it depends on what you are experiencing. You cannot judge someone for having to take medication for an illness.
Mhm.
My daughter would not be here today if it wasn't for medication, and neither would my son, actually. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm here to kind of I think reduce that stigma and educate people a little bit that every story is different. So
Mhm.
don't make blanket statements like people don't need medication for mental illness. Maybe some people don't. Some people can use strategies. I could use strategies that created work for me because I do not have a serious mental illness. But then some people can use strategies, but we cannot, say that medication isn't for some people either, if that makes any sense.
It
Yeah.
does, absolutely. So it's never too, most people tend to like generalize or they tend to judge. And
Right.
I absolutely agree with you. There's no one size that fits all. Every situation, every child is different, every situation is different. And Michelle, I gotta say, you are just an incredible, strong woman.
Well, thank you.
And I do have to say, yes, I know seeing your children or any child or any parent who has to go through these difficult times as you had to go through, unfortunately. um, I just want to say, I have two children as well, but I can only put myself in your shoes, knowing as to what you had to go through. And for the families, obviously, it's not easy, it's the difficult times. But then walk us through your FAST framework. Break it down and explain how did the fast framework, how did it come about, and how is it changing lives during chaos, as you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So the framework came about because I realized, I mean, and thank you for, saying those kind words. But I did have a lot of people coming up to me and saying, how are you still standing? How are you still okay? And not just surviving, but you still seem to be thriving. Like I ended up publishing my poetry book, which was a dream of mine. And so people were asking me these things, and I realized, so number one, I'm a big nerd, and I had been constantly studying about mental health and strategies and positive psychology, taking courses where I can, aside from my job, as a special needs teacher at the time. And I realized that there were certain things that I had been doing, and I put it all together in a framework that would be a little bit easier to understand. So the FAST framework is FAST. And the F stands for we have to be able to feel and express our emotions so that we process them. There's
Mhm.
so much research that shows that if we aren't processing our emotions, and if they're going to get stuck, and if they get stuck, we're going to become ill. And there's
Right.
countless, studies that prove this. And so people are made to feel ashamed, and so then they feel like they shouldn't talk about it, especially like in my culture, like the number of times I heard, oh, you shouldn't be talking about these things, and I still hear you should be talking about these things, keep these things private in the family. And I think, but why? I have no shame, right? Nobody did anything wrong. This is just the way it is. And if I talk about it, it educates other people so that they feel that they're not alone and they don't have to have shame, and they know what they can now do about things. So,
Mm.
no, I will not, stop talking, but also expressing, right? So I found various ways to express myself, but one is I do see a therapist as well. I think therapy is an incredibly valuable tool. And the therapist that I was seeing at the time that my daughter had her open heart surgery, and my son at 11, his mood disorder was showing up for the first time, or his depression was showing up for the first time, and so extreme that he was bolting through the front door into traffic, flopping into traffic, trying to hit his head into the pavement.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
yes, yeah. So really extreme, really extreme. And my counselor told me, I'm still taking care of my daughter. It was like a month into her open heart surgery. And now I've got my son out of control. And so I'm just barely holding on. And my counselor told me, you're doing all of this for your family, and I get that there's a lot, but no excuses. You have to find something for yourself. What are you going to do for yourself? And so it's like all of us, we grow up and we forget our childhood dreams.
Mhm.
Responsibilities take over and we forget to make time for our passions. And I used to write all the time and I put it aside because I had no time for it. And she had said no excuses. So I said, okay, well, when can I schedule even at 10 minutes or something? And
Mhm.
so it was when I would be drinking my morning coffee, right? Morning coffee in one hand, and I'd have notepad and I'd just start writing poetry again because I thought, okay, I don't have time to be writing novels right now or even short stories, but I have time to write poetry. So
Yeah.
before you knew it, I ended up with, a poetry page on Instagram, Mindful Warriors Way, and then enough poems for a book. And then during COVID, I put it all together in a manuscript and started sending it off, and it ended up published,
Oh, wow.
right?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, and that was my childhood dream. And so there's no excuses. But not only that, my poetry was the other way that I was healing because
Yes.
I was putting all of my emotion and all of my trauma into my words and transforming it. And so that I was also utilizing the F part of my framework. So that's the F, is to feel and express. You can stop me at any time, otherwise I'm just gonna keep talking.
No, I wanted you to break down the framework. Like what, break it down for us.
Yeah, I feel like I talk too much on podcasts. But A and S is the accept and and surrender.
Hmm.
Well, there are some things that are given to us that we can't change. And so we need to be able to differentiate between that we can't change and have to accept and surrender to, and that which we can. And I saw, other parents of special needs kids, for my students, who wouldn't accept the diagnosis, and then they wouldn't accept. And like, I'm not saying that there's not room for growth. Everyone has room for growth.
Hmm.
But if you're starting off with an intellectual disability, or your child is starting off with an intellectual disability, you have to, accept that that's where they're at, and then their growth might be this much, but they might never be at the same level as a neurotypical child, right? You have to accept that. There has to come in, and it's when we're not accepting, that's where the suffering lies. So
Right.
I see these parents suffering unnecessarily because they could never accept the diagnoses.
Mhm.
And so the hardest thing that I had to accept was my daughter's psychosis. And at one point, this is probably the third time we came back to the hospital because she was suicidal now. And we ended up, so she would break out of her restraints. Like they had to restrain her in the emergency room because she was trying to run away and she's
Mhm.
suicidal. And she ends up in this room that looks like a prison. I don't know if you've ever seen this room in the
No,
emergency. Oh
no.
my gosh. It's like cold concrete walls, right? And little steel toilet. They put a mattress on the ground because it's like, I guess, suicide precautions. And I don't even think there was a sheet. I think it was a blue mattress on the ground that she was lying on. And I sat there. I mean, at the same time, her her IBD was acting up. Like it was the worst moment. It was the worst moment. And I sat there and I actually did find a moment while she was sleeping to meditate. And I remember I just surrendered it all. Like I just thought, okay, God, this is what you've given us. So I guess I'm going to have to deal with it, right? And I kind of just surrendered to that moment and meditated. And it was shocking because I had found a moment of peace in the midst of our worst nightmare. And
Mhm.
so if I can find a moment of peace in our worst nightmare, we can certainly find peace with the regular stressors of our life. We can
Mhm.
all find that peace.
Right. Right. Hmm.
And the T stands for to transform with your mindset, because our mindset is such a powerful, powerful thing. And I refused to ever be a victim. And if I had sat there and ever felt like a victim, I would never have been able to get to the point where I am now, right? It would have crumbled me. And so mindset is everything. I mean, our Sikh Guru Nanak says that you conquer your mind and you conquer the world, and it's really true. And there's so many spiritual people of different faiths that will say the exact same thing in different words. But there are people who survived the Holocaust with mindset, you know,
Hmm.
and these stories in history that prove it time and time again. So that is the FAST framework.
That is beautiful. And there were a couple of nuggets that you just shared there. You talked, first of all, you talked about stuck and why most people do stay stuck, whether they're going through, um, a difficult time in their state, whether you're going through a divorce, whether you're going through cancer, any difficult moment, people stay stuck and because they don't know how to get out of those situations. And what I just want to quickly share, talking about what you said, which is point on, is that when I went through my difficult journey of my life, I went through a divorce and about 12 years ago. And that was the most, dark moment of my life. Everyone has those moments, but for me, that was a very difficult moment. But I refused to stay stuck. I refused
Yes,
to, first of all, to be a victim.
yes,
Because if you
exactly.
stay that way, right? And that's what I refuse. Even for me, people would say to me, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. Well, I didn't want to listen to anybody
Yes,
because
right.
if I chose to leave, I chose to leave. But, it's how do we find the strength? And for you, Michelle, I commend you because it's not easy seeing your daughter, but you found that peace, finding peace within the chaos or the
Yeah,
stress, right?
right.
And you found an outlet. For each and every one of us, we have to find an outlet, whether it's
Mhm.
meditation, whatever the case is. For you, it was
Yes,
poetry as well. So
right.
I just want to commend you that you found an outlet.
Thank you. I'm grateful that I did, because
Yes.
I want others to know the same, right? And I feel like that's the whole point of going through any hardship, is that when you are able to rise above it, then we can lend others a helping hand, right? And that's the point of it all. The point of it all
Absolutely.
is to
Mhm.
show other people that there is a way through that darkness back to the light. Um,
Yes.
and that doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect all the time. Like all of a sudden you get to this place of perfection. God no, like my son now has been going through, um, we're trying to figure out medication. He ends up hospitalized because medications aren't working. So it's going to be an up and down journey. Um, but that doesn't mean you can't find peace through the chaos.
Mhm.
Yeah, and come out of it into a better place. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, 100%. So how did navigating your children's complex diagnosis, I mean, you might have shared, shape your path to resilience? Was there a single moment? Were there moments that shaped?
Mm, That's a good question. I'm I'm not sure if, again, if it was a single moment or if it was just all these little practices that I found kind of along the way, that kind of been talking about. I found meditation many years ago, probably over 15 years ago now. I mean, my daughter's 20. um, I found, writing again, and nature. And so there's all these, I think, little practices that helped me to find that resilience, right? And so all of those kinds of strategies are also woven within the FAST framework. And
Yes.
there's so many strategies, like I feel like EFT, mindfulness. There's so many that will reduce our cortisol, right? Laughter,
Yes, yeah.
and so there's too many to kind of even recall right now. But I put them all my course. And then it's because it's like not all of those strategies are going to resonate with everyone, but even if a few of them resonate with you, then you're able to, the key being reduce your cortisol levels.
Right. Yes.
Because that cortisol, it's a killer. If your body remains in high levels of cortisol, you're going to end up with an illness, unfortunately. So we need to find all the strategies to reduce the cortisol, find resilience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about your course for a moment. How do you tailor your course from adults to neurodiverse
Right.
adolescents?
Right. There are actually different courses. So the adult course is called Make Stress Your Bitch.
Okay.
That is not the one for the neurodivergent young adolescents. And then the other course actually was because I was founded or created rather through my work as a teacher. And
Mhm.
so I was a special education teacher, but I had the privilege of being the social and emotional learning teacher within the Surrey School District for a year. And so all the different strategies that I had been teaching throughout that year, I put into my own course. It's a social and emotional learning course. So they're actually different courses, and I'm in the process right now of creating a course for self-love for women
Mhm.
because that's a huge part of our own healing. And we don't realize that stepping into self-love isn't selfish, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the thing that people will kind of stop people from stepping into loving themselves. What we don't realize that is that no, when we love ourselves, love is a powerful energy. That love can lead to self-healing. And when we heal ourselves and we're doing our part in actually healing the collective, because if we all could just work on the healing of ourselves, and then we'd have a healed nation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And self-love isn't, we're not talking about making yourself better than someone. We're not saying, oh yeah, you got to treat yourself as if you're better than everyone else. No, all it is actually making yourself an equal because as women, we are such givers
Mhm.
that we naturally constantly overgive until we're depleted. And
Yes. Yeah.
when we're depleted, then we're no good for anyone. And so, we hear all the cliche, you gotta fill your own cup first, etc. But it's true. You really do. You really do have to tend to, your own healing
Mhm.
before, and then you're gonna be better off for everyone else.
Yeah, 100%. Self-love is one of the most greatest gifts that as women we can give ourselves. So,
Yeah.
indulge in self-love every day. What would you say are what would be the steps that our listeners can take? What do they need to do in terms of self-love?
No, that's really good. I'm actually just trying to create the course myself, but I think that um, the biggest piece is your self-talk, right?
Ah, yes. Mhm.
I believe, because if you can change the self-talk and start talking to yourself in a much more compassionate manner and
Mm.
loving manner, like talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. I'm in shock sometimes when I hear women tell me how like their inner dialogue. And I think, how are you talking to yourself like that? Stop. Like, would you talk to your friend that way? Then what makes it okay to talk to yourself that way?
Mm.
So I think, and so I'm actually just uploading onto Insight Timer. I do have a free meditation for stress and anxiety relief on Insight Timer, but I'm also in the process of uploading affirmations for radical self-love and healing, and the kinds of words that we should be saying to ourselves.
Yeah, affirmations are very powerful. We need to always listen to ourselves as to what we're saying. And sometimes, so if you say the affirmations, it's the most powerful tools. I have to just agree with you as to what we need to do. So let's talk about the course itself, the FAST framework, because it's very, very very curious as to, and you explained and how you tailor your course to the neurodivergent adults, and
Mhm.
share with us a story where applying your FAST
Mhm.
framework
Mhm.
turned a break point into a breakthrough.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I can't come up with like one specific point. But after I have run the course, I've just run the course a few times. It's a fairly new course, the Make Stressor Rich, which is the
Mhm.
one for adults, not the one for neurodiverse um, adolescents. But I had a woman who's in her 60s, who has always been very hard on herself, uh, extreme anxiety, but she said that she didn't have the money to be able to go to a therapist, even though that was some of the advice that I was giving her.
Mhm.
And so I gave her a massive discount to the course, which I'm also happy to do to help people out if they need it. Um, and afterwards, she said that her family has been saying she's a whole different person, and she feels like a whole different person.
Wow, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I have to give that credit to her as well. Again, it's not one little thing that she did. She used multiple strategies, right? And she is utilizing them daily. And so I can tell you what the strategies are, but
Mm,
if you're just going to let them sit there, then it's never going to transform your life.
true. Yeah.
So she's doing the work.
Mm.
And there's another woman as well who went through something quite traumatic, ended up with MS, because I'm saying if we don't deal with our stress, it's going to become an illness in our body. And unfortunately, that's what happened with her. But she has been utilizing the strategies, and she said that her symptoms have subsided. So it's huge, it's powerful, but you have to do the work, right? So I can only teach you the strategies, but you have to be willing to do the actual work. And yeah, and
Exactly. Exactly. You've got to put in the work. Otherwise, we won't see the results no matter what that may be. How can our listeners how can our listeners identify if they're stuck in chronic stress rather than a growth? And what is the first step you would recommend?
mhm, that's a little tricky. I mean, there's so many different signs
Right.
of chronic stress, right? It could be fatigue and just like that feeling of overwhelm, feeling overwhelmed all the time, feeling like you don't have time for anything anymore, uh, and not being able to manage your emotions. Um, and one thing I would say, I mean, there's so many things that you could do, but I would say stop and take a deep breath and find a mindful moment, because when we do that, we place distance with our thoughts, which are causing the emotions, right? um, and so if you could just find a mindful moment, take a few deep breaths, get out of here, because you don't want to let your thoughts be your master. Your mind is not supposed to be your master, it's supposed to be your servant. So you need to calm it down so that you take control and reprogram your mind, right? So yeah, and then I mean, people feel free to reach out. I'm happy to do free consults to
Mhm.
see if I'm able to help. So my website is Mindful Warriors Way on Kajabi. And I'm also on Instagram. I'm at Mindful Warriors Way on Instagram. And I also have another account, Mothers of Mental Health. So I love, the whole point is to help people. So I'm happy to hear from people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll put your website, we'll put that in the show notes. So let's talk about what are some of the common challenges, Michelle, do neurodiverse adolescents face that adolescents overlook, when it comes to resilience?
Again, so every case is very different, right? Every person on the spectrum, their challenges will differ depending on, who it is. So the groups that I've worked with, I've seen, adolescents where again the challenges will be very different. But if I am, let me just think about maybe one case, or a lot of the cases, some of the similarities would be anxiety, right? A lot of people on the spectrum or that are neurodiverse will unfortunately struggle with anxiety, struggle with social skills. And so those are some of the pieces that I put into the course that's catered for neurodiverse adolescents. Yeah. And emotions and understanding emotions is another piece that a lot of people will struggle with. Yeah, yeah. So that, and I have also put, strategies in there to teach strategies to overcome some of these big emotions and this anxiety and this overthinking. So there's some, it's like CBT, but a really, easy way. It's taught in a kind of simplified way. And then there's, yeah, mindfulness and learning different ways to just stop and be mindful and just use your senses in the moment and ground yourself in the moment. So again, we're not becoming overwhelmed by our thoughts, which are creating the emotions. So,
Right. Oh, what would you say are some of the mindset shifts that transform stress into strength? What would it be and why?
some of the mindset,
Shifts. Yeah.
I think that the biggest shift is that we're not victims, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but if we see ourselves as victims, then we're just going to crumple,
True. Yeah.
never going to be able to rise. But the moment we realize, no, this has happened, I can't change that, but I'm going to shift my energy to what I can do, right? I mean, if I had sat there beating myself up, thinking about all the multiple diagnoses that my children have and feeling sorry for myself, I could never have helped them, right? I would have had no energy left to help them if I was just sitting there crying and feeling sorry for myself. I had to learn really quickly, this is what it is. I have to accept it. My children cannot afford for me to be a victim. Move on. And then now I can focus on, medical appointments, getting them the medical help that they need, giving them the correct medication so that they can both be, I mean, I've gotten my daughter to a fairly good place, knock on wood, right? A pretty happy, healthy place. Yes, she needs to take medication, but she's at a fairly good place, and I'm going to get my son there too. But I can't do that if I decided to sit in victimhood, right? So I think that would probably be the biggest mindset shift.
Mhm.
And are you sitting there, like, listen to your own inner dialogue? What are you saying to yourself? And sometimes I catch other people doing it with just little things, right? Like,
Would you catch them say? Or what are they saying?
better not be listening to this, right? Like, I'll catch friends saying, yeah, but I'm single and I have to do it all, and so it's too hard, or like, and I think to myself, okay, are you identifying as a victim right now, or are you rising out? I won't say it because they'll be like, oh, that Michelle is such a bitch, so I won't say it out loud, but I'm
But
thinking,
you're thinking.
I'm thinking, I'm like, you're kind of being a victim right now, like. And it's true, because then I've had friends get stuck in that kind of mentality, but
Yeah.
then they never rose above it to actually do something, and years pass and they're in the same boat. But I will only help someone if they want help and are asking me for help. Otherwise, you have to kind of let people be. So, you know, and what I also find is that people who strongly identify with the victim mentality
Mhm.
become very defensive. So even if you do try to help in a gentle way, they're not ready to hear it. So someone has to be ready to hear it and ready to want to change.
Right.
But change is uncomfortable, right?
It,
Change is uncomfortable, growth is uncomfortable. So people would rather be stuck in their ways sometimes.
mhm,
But
mhm.
that's the biggest shift I think that you could really make in
Yeah,
life.
absolutely. You mentioned, and I'm just going off tangent, but it's relating to what we're just talking about. You know, we can't help other individuals. Parents have to, you know, everyone has their own. So it doesn't matter what you're going through. And this is going back 2 years ago now, and I was just coming back, I was just walking home and I was coming back from somewhere, but a mother was walking with a child and the road was pretty empty, but the mother was walking with a child. The child was walking so far ahead and the mother was walking way behind. And I'm walking behind them, but I'm thinking, very odd dynamic.
Yes.
So I went up to the mother, and you know, as a mother, I've got a heart. So I went up to the mother and I said, well, excuse me, but your child is just walking. She got so defensive,
Yes. Yeah.
so defensive. So now, from now on, from that moment on, I did not say anything to anyone because it's not my place. I don't
Yes.
know. Yeah, so just got defensive.
Yeah, exactly. That exit my point exactly. But I've
I
seen
don't say anything.
similar, I've seen similar situations where I'm thinking the same thing, and it's like a young child, and then they're way off, and I'm thinking, ah, like
I know.
I'm having
Anyone's
the
going to
same
rob you,
thing.
and like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so anyway, it's not my place. But so looking ahead, Michelle, what vision would you can you share with us for the future for resilience building that you can provide for neurodiverse divergence, adolescents, and the communication? What role does that play as
Oh,
you look forward into the future? What
I,
do you
I mean, so if I'm speaking to my courses for the neurodivergent adolescents and people, really, social and emotional learning is something that's not talked about enough.
think?
And and it actually truly, and there's research to show it, will build emotional intelligence and resilience. Emotional intelligence is that resilience building, right? And so there are ways to improve your emotional intelligence and improve your and to increase your resilience. It's just about actually, again, doing the work, right? Someone would have to buy the course and do the work. And I'm also happy to do lead the courses as well. They're online, but if someone wants a little bit more guidance, I'm more than happy to do that and actually teach the courses online. Again, I just need people reaching out.
Right.
So that's the resilience building. But I mean, the bigger picture is that when we speak about resilience, and I think that this is why I'm so passionate about resilience building. When we speak about resilience, we're speaking about the opposite of mental illness. You know, we're talking about instead of talking about illness of the mind, we're talking about strength of the mind. And those strategies are something that are in our control as well. So, there are so many things, especially if we're not the ones struggling with extreme mental illness. That's a different boat, altogether. But there are things we can do to build the strength of our mind. And so that's, I think, why I'm so passionate about it, is because of what I have seen with my own children and what, as a caregiver, I've had to endure. And so the resilience, it's a superpower, you
It
know,
is. Yeah.
it pulls us through those dark times. Um, and so it's something that I would love everyone to learn. It's a superpower that could be learned. Um, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do even, more work. And I want to be able to create um, a, a charity or institution for advocacy, to do some advocacy work and support groups. And so I have like a bigger vision in mind, and this is just kind of the beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, Michelle, I first of all just want to commend you for the strength you hold. The strength you hold. You're a woman of courage, as I see. And you know, it doesn't matter what you have gone through with your children. And you know, those dark moments, as you explained, can be the most difficult for any parent. So I just want to take a moment to really commend you for having the strength, having the courage, and having the resilience, and how you fought through those moments to show strength. Because if, as you said, if we as women don't have the strength, how can we show that to our children? How can we show that to our families? You know, it's not possible. So I just want to take this moment to say, yeah, it is beautiful to see what you are doing and the impact that you're already creating in the community. So congratulations, and you're such an amazing woman.
Oh, that's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity to talk and talk and talk.
Yes, no, you did amazing. You know, it's been such a powerful conversation. So where can people connect with you, and how can we support you best?
Yeah, so you could connect with me through email, Michelle Dosanjh-Johal at Gmail. I have my email is also on my website, Mindful Warriors Way through Kajabi, or you can connect with me through Instagram. Just DM me Mindful Warriors Way or Mothers of Mental Health. I'll be happy to hear from people.
Okay, amazing. And so we will put that in the show notes. And Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights into your your powerful personal story of children with neurodivergence, and the transformation that you are helping other adolescents, other individuals to cope with, so how they can rise stronger from to their power. And so to all the listeners, we want to thank you so much for tuning in with Michelle Dosanjh-Johal, a powerful story, powerful conversation. And remember, resilience isn't about surviving, it's about transforming to your greatest strengths. If you've enjoyed this conversation with Michelle Dosanjh-Johal, please connect with her. Go to her website, The Mindful Warriors Way, and check the information out. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode, but always be true to yourself and transform into your greatest strengths every single day. Until next time, bye for now. Michelle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.